Today's episode is sponsored by QuickBase, the leading application platform for dynamic work.
Aerospace and defense manufacturing.
Machines and automation.
Additive manufacturing.
Smart manufacturing.
The global manufacturing economy.
Welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals, powered by SME. From the design screen to the shop floor to final assembly, we drive the conversation about making manufacturing smarter by connecting people who are passionate about manufacturing.
Hello and welcome to Advanced Manufacturing Now, the podcast for manufacturing professionals. I'm your host, Amy Bryson, contributing lead editor of Smart Manufacturing magazine. Today we'll be talking about a host of topics around process improvements and the benefits of having flexible and customizable manufacturing solutions, particularly as it relates to managing the shop floor. And I'm lucky to be joined by two guests today for this discussion. Anthony Offretti is Director of Customer Advisory for QuickBase, where he serves as the subject matter expert on manufacturing use cases and implementation. And Anthony joined QuickBase in February of 2023 after spending 26 years in manufacturing at Ford, Jeep, and Amazon. So we look forward to hearing more about that. And joining Anthony is Gary Minchell, founder of the Manufacturing Connection and a thought leader on the intersection of technology and operations in manufacturing, which is getting a lot of conversation right now. Gary's career includes roles as an engineer and advisor, and he is formerly the editor-in-chief of Automation World. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate it.
Great. Before we dive into our topic, I'd like to hear just a little bit more about each of your backgrounds, the work you do, and kind of what brings us here today.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'm Anthony Offretti. I'm the director of the customer advisory team here at QuickBase. What does that mean? Well, the customer advisory team are subject matter experts in manufacturing and construction, in solar, and a few other vertical industries where we provide and have the experience of the client. We've actually been in the seats of the clients, and we're able to converse with the clients, understand how our software works, and then where that meets and helps prospects and our customers. And when it comes to use cases, how to implement them. Well, most of us have spent 20 plus years in the industries. Myself, I've spent, as you said before, spent 26 years in the automotive industries in Ford Motor Company, where I launched assembly lines around the world, and then at Jeep, where I ran the body shop at the Wrangler plant in Toledo, Ohio. And then I joined QuickBase. So it's been a great journey, just taking all those learning experiences and my personal experiences on how to implement QuickBase and where it can help out on the shop floor.
And I'm Gary. I started out as a child, as one comedian said. I started out a long time ago building Airstream trailers. You may have heard of those. I had manufacturing and engineering roles there and learned a heck of a lot, and went on to be a quality assurance manager somewhere else. I was VP of marketing and application engineering for a company that built automated assembly equipment. And for a while, I was a sales engineer, principally selling PLCs and drives and vision systems back in the 90s, and chucked that all to become a writer, became an editor, and had the opportunity to be one of the three co-founders of Automation World magazine in 2003. And in 2003, I started blogging. And in 2007, I started podcasting, so I've kind of gone through the realm. But that led to being, the Automation World thing lasted about 10 years, and it was time to go. I turned my blog into the manufacturingconnection.com, and I've been blogging and tweeting and linking in and all that kind of stuff for the last 13 years or so. So I've kind of gone the whole gamut from user to seller to writing about it.
Yeah, you have a lot of great experiences for this conversation. And, you've seen a lot, I'm sure. You've seen a lot of what to do, what not to do. And technology is playing such a huge part as it relates to the shop floor and automation and moving smart manufacturing forward. And a lot of our listeners, we have a mix of, we have small and mid-sized manufacturing leaders as well as, the big guys. But from your perspective, what are some of the newer tech-driven manufacturing techniques or programs on today's factory floor that are the most effective or getting a lot of attention?
There's a lot of hype going on about artificial intelligence right now, or a writer I'd like to read calls it augmented intelligence rather than artificial. But we're tying an awful lot of stuff together right now. We went through like PCs into stuff, and we've got a lot of computer driven stuff that's embedded. And we went through the Internet of Things kind of system. That's good because the Internet of Things tied all the sensors together, and the PC gave us a lot of capability for databases and so on. And we've tied a lot of this stuff together. We call it digitalization, Industry 4.0. We've got lots of buzzwords. So the generative AI is like the cool thing right now, and they coupled with something called no code or low code, depending on whose software. And so if you couple generative AI, which is the ability to type in a simple query and maybe get a program out, like how do I program this motor starter or start stop or something? Well, they should know how to do it, but anyway. If you don't, you could program that in, or low code stuff. I can be very flexible, and I can change a form or change something on the fly and serve my base better if I'm a programmer in a company. So that's what's all coming together. So some of it is new, some of it is not so new, but it all seems to be helping. I've listened to a number of customers, and they just seem to be this really helps them get their production operations going better.
And Gary, to pile onto that, are you seeing different types of use cases depending on the size of the shop? Is there more hesitation on the side of the smaller shops? Is there a lack of understanding of how it can be used effectively? What are you seeing there?
Oh, there's often a lack of understanding. My neighbor owns a kind of a small to mid-size sheet metal shop. And I'm always talking to him about some of the new things like the cobots and how they're cheaper and different kinds of software. And he always has a little reluctance to spend money. As far as for size, it's often, if they're smaller, you have to convince about the investment that actually will pay off. But the application is the same everywhere. You take a big company, when you break it down, they're actually composed of multiple plants, and usually the multiple plants have different software things. And usually they're all using Excel anyway, Microsoft Excel, which is, it has its place in the world, but not in manufacturing because it's too darn hard. It's too easy to screw up. And so when you break it down that way, then it becomes almost the same thing. So software data entry is a huge pain point. And if they can get the data entry in and then for forms and then really good visualization, and that's where a lot of the cool stuff is happening in visualization. And so if you can go no code or low code, meaning that you don't need a programmer to do Python or HTML to do these things, that all makes it easy for everybody, from even the large manufacturers when you break it into small groups to smaller, mid-sized manufacturers. And most of the software these days is priced so reasonably for wherever you are in the world. So I see that kind of stuff, and I see people using it, and I'm just amazed we've been talking about it so long and so few people are using it. More people need to get involved in this.
Great. Anthony, what are your perspectives on that?
Well, yeah, I totally agree with what Gary's saying. I think what I'm starting to see, the biggest trends are not only connecting to the edge, like the IoT and the intersection of IT and OT, the operational technology stuff. There's a little bit of a gray area there between those two connections, because the operational technology is always lagging way behind the informational technology side of it. So bringing those two pieces together with IoT and AI is really where that's going to be a big growth point, getting that and all of that data collected from the edge. The other piece that I see recently is getting the operator involved, and the shop floor is dominated by machines that may be connected to the internet or to the intranet, depending on where you are. But the other piece is that the individual operators, the people that actually do the work, and the supervisors, we spend so much time on making processes and making machines efficient and getting the best OEE that we can, but then we forget about the people. And that's where shop floor management is really starting to come in as a big trend, because we're starting to see that this data that's coming in is getting stored in Excel. It might be stored in an older system, might be stored in a software in the cloud solution, but getting that all together to help the operator and tell their story and see and let them make corrections at the point of loading or at the point of correction is where it needs to go. And that's where I'm starting to see the biggest trend right now.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. I'd love to hear from you about some of the pain points that you're helping to address, especially from, production supervisors. What keeps them up at night or drives them crazy? And what are some of the programs or techniques that can help solve those challenges and kind of connect these siloed pieces of information?
Yeah, Amy, that's a great question. The piece that I like calling all that, I like calling that as cognitive overload. This is, I think I borrowed that from Gary, from a previous conversation. But that cognitive overload, it really is. It's a productivity hit, but they don't see it. They don't see it in the OEE calculation. Where you see it is in your attrition rates, because these supervisors and these frontline operators or team leaders, they're being asked to work in, on average, let's just say 67 different systems, 70 different systems. Yeah, it's really hard. And when you're transmitting or data and you're trying to cut and paste across all of these different systems that don't talk to each other, it's frustrating. And that's one of the major reasons why people leave. And then with then you have this other influence of newer workforce that's coming in. And their expectation is that it's mobile. Your technology is mobile. And that's a world of difference where the manufacturing shop floor is today.
Yeah, it's so interesting how so many other industries have grabbed onto this whole consumerization of IT into the workplace, and manufacturing has such a huge opportunity, especially as it relates to keeping really great talent and making their jobs easier and attracting and retaining a new breed of digital natives that expect that in any environment. So that's a really interesting point. So let's talk about a little bit around technology and how it drives improvements to processes. So if you think about specific shop floor management processes, which have seen the most improvement through automation or dynamic work management techniques?
For dynamic work management, it's really, if you're looking at it, if you're picturing an iceberg, you're only seeing the top 10% of the iceberg, and the rest of it, the 90% underneath the water, is where the gray work lives. It's not the end result of the chart or the report you're putting out for the directors or the vice presidents. Is actually all the data collection that happens underneath that. And all those interactions and pulling down CSV files and making Excel sheets and pivot tables and doing all of that work, that's all of the gray work that you have to deal with on a daily basis. So the trend is how to connect those systems together. A company isn't going to go out and revamp their quality management system or their ERP. They're expecting that you connect to it, and they give you the opportunity to download a CSV file. Where we come in and we're starting to see the trend is that's not acceptable anymore. So we're starting to see, how to connect these together through APIs, through ODBC drivers, through edge equipment. And then that's where we're starting to see, people that are investing in that, they're starting to see a return on their investment. It could be either transitory issues with their people, their attrition rates go down, or faster reaction to capturing issues on the assembly line.
So you mentioned, if I could just jump in here a second, a couple of things you mentioned are really key. Well, actually, many things are really key. But let's go with data collection first. In my experience of installing automation quite some time ago, and if it's not easy to use and intuitive, people won't use it. So one of the problems gets to be it's got to be so easy and intuitive that people can put it in. Otherwise, they're going to put things in handwritten, and you can't read their handwriting. My problem. Or you type, and not everybody's really good touch typer. Or one of my bones to pick with OEE is you have to choose a category. When something goes wrong, you have to choose a category. You're going to choose the easiest thing, like what gets me out of this system so I can go back to work the fastest. Okay, that's a real challenge with OEE. So you need to find ways to capture that. And then you kept mentioning automation. So I did Automation World for 10 years, and I tried to write about lean, and the lean people said, we hate automation because that's the opposite of lean. Lean manufacturing is more hand assembly. I said, oh, but automation gives you data if you know how to use it. And when you're going to do some sort of a project, a lean project, you need data. So that's another data source coming in that helps all that, which can be trustworthy because it comes right out of the machine. So those are a couple of things. And so what I've learned about QuickBase quickly is they make it easier for the client to do an input form that they know because they know their people. They know their people can input more easily and readily. And they can, and if somebody says, hey, I need to do this, I can't quite do it, they can make a change to the form really fast. I'm thinking about Jeremy, who was with us at the Empower sessions, and he was talking about how easy it was to change, or one company was in Mexico and he had to do Spanish, could do that kind of stuff. So, but that's a real key. It's a real key to getting people, you want people to use the system, so you want to make it usable. So that's all key. That's cool.
Yeah. So how do you encourage adoption of tools like this in a dynamic work management platform? And are there different departments that, people should be thinking about prioritizing to drive real benefits and create that kind of change mindset and adoption mindset?
Really, it comes down to most of these people are doing the work already, and they're doing it inside of email or they're doing it inside of Excel.
Which is very scary to think about.
Right. It is very scary because what they don't realize is that every time they make an Excel sheet, they're just making their problem worse because the data disparity is, and the disconnected silos are just getting worse. And you're multiplying it times how many people you have in an assembly plant, multiplied times how many Excel sheets. You can see how bad the problem can get very quickly. But the adoption really comes down to is you could show them very quickly on how fast and easy it is to make an application. And since they've already done the hard work, which is making the process in the form, converting that into the no-code application is very simple. And then they're realizing that, hey, I made this application. It's based off of the work that I've already know. Adoption is just the follow-on. It's pretty easy from that standpoint.
Yeah, you're changing you're changing some stuff in the process, and hopefully, if you add something like a QuickBase, you're making that change easier and less of an obstacle to learn, because people I sort of had a career in change management, and it's not easy, and not just in manufacturing, but think about your personal life. If you have a church or a nonprofit organization, or so it's the same. It's people. And so think about people and how can I do this that helps them do their job and their workflow and not seem like a hindrance or an obstacle or something that I've got to go off for 2 weeks of school to learn, and all those kind of things that just don't work. So that's some of this sort of new technology, but it's not really new technology. It's just a better way of applying this technology and thinking about the client, the end user, and okay, how do I make it easier for them? How do I make a display that looks intuitive when they look at it? So an operator, when they look at a display, they need to almost instantaneously be able to gauge the status of the machine or whatever process, whatever it might be. And so there's been a lot of study on human factor engineering and so on of that sort of stuff. And so that's another key point. And what I'm seeing from companies like this are, yeah, let's look at the client and let's not stand in their way of doing a better job. Let's actually work with them to enhance what they're doing. And that's given my many year history, that's one of the biggest things I've seen is rather than change management being tougher, rather we help them along on the change process to do things better. And that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of use cases where you can show and not just tell how, these things can help the frontline workers do their jobs more effectively, more safely, quickly, more efficiently, and just have, feel more successful in what they're doing. It sounds like you have a lot of use cases that could speak to that.
No, this is a really great transition, because not only can a person create their own application, if you understand Excel, you can pretty much create an application within a few hours. And it can be a minimal viable product. You can get out there and start utilizing it right away. And you only really need to understand basic Excel formulas to do that. But what we've done is we've also created a suite of applications that are utilized in manufacturing on a daily basis. So, EHS, site safety audits, if you need to do permit to work or you need to get a hot permit, if you need to do a hazardous and risk assessment on your process, we have all of that suites. We also have computerized maintenance management systems, so you can do all of your maintenance with inside of this rather than an Excel or an Outlook calendar. And then we have the last piece, what we just made, which is shop floor management. And the key phrase for shop floor management is getting the right person on the right job at the right time. Now, typically, that is all done in a supervisor's tribal knowledge. And that's really difficult with today's transient workforce.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, it sounds like it's a game changer, right? When it comes to managing the shop floor. Can you give us some 4 examples of how, certain scenarios can be transformed?
Yeah, I'd love to give a couple. So typically on your shop floor, you're going to have a workforce that's going to be roughly 50% people that have been there for 4 years or more. And then you're going to get a newer group of people that are going to come in and they're going to be trying out manufacturing for the first time in their career. They're entering the workforce, so to speak. Now, they have a lot of competing other industries that they may want to work for. So you're going to get a lot of transient people show up for work. And that is where manufacturers are struggling with. Who's going to show up for work? And with that, you need to couple people that are showing up for work the first time that are inexperienced and place them on jobs where they're going to get a team leader that's assigned to them. So what's been happening over the last few, let's say, years, the folks would show up, they would get assigned to a workstation based off of what was open and available, but not necessarily if you knew their training history. And it wasn't until after shifts start where all of a sudden you're getting a slow cycle or a large batch of bad parts. And you realize that, I had an untrained operator on that job. They've never seen it before. Well, you need to know that beforehand. You need to know who's going to be on that line, at least a week ahead of time so that you can prep and train. And that's what the software allows. It gives you that forward-looking viewpoint on who's assigned to the job, whether or not they have the certifications of that job. If it's a welding or a soldering type of operation, you're going to need to have some sort of certification for that. And then secondly, how many repetitions of that job have they done prior to? Are they experienced? Do they have enough OJT on it? And having that knowledge at your fingertips before shift start certainly creates a much better environment, not only for the new operator, but for the supervisor that's trying to get the shift started.
Yeah. So let's switch gears just a little bit. And Anthony, can you talk to us a little bit about how you roll out solutions from plant to plant? What does that look like?
So rolling out solutions from plant to plant, which you did typically, and we have a few use cases where we've done it with NSK bearing, we've done it with Valmet flow control, where they will start in one location. Let's just call that the prime plant or lead plant. And you build out you build it out with a small team of people. And then after you get most of the bugs worked out and you can see where things are going, you start addressing things like language. Do I need to have this in another language? Do I have all of the customer feedback controls in there? And once you get that to that point, then you're able to bring it into other facilities and open up the door. So what QuickBase allows you to do is you can do it on a user base, per seat basis, or you can do it on a usage base. So if you want to scale rapidly, you can choose a usage-based formula and roll that out across your entire organization without having that seat license barrier. And it allows you to scale up applications that folks are used to. And it really helps out get that adoptability and that usability across all plants.
So I'm not a QuickBase expert, but rolling out to multiple plants, it's not all cookie cutter. So you can send it all out, but the flexibility inherent in like QuickBase software enables them to roll it out. But the responsible person in each plant, because every plant, they could all be bottling plants. It could have been a beer brewery that bought a whole bunch of plants and they all bottle beer, but they all have different things. They all have maybe a different machine or a different way of doing things or different nomenclature. They call things differently. And if you've got the flexibility within the program, within the application, to make those minor tweaks and modifications, then you're so far ahead, and then it's easier. And each plant feels like a little bit of ownership in the whole thing, and because you have to sell. Okay, engineers hate to sell, but you've got to sell to the people and that sort of thing. And that's what I like about this type of software is, each plant can get some ownership, and you can roll it out. The database is there, and it can be rolled up to whatever they need for corporately. But at the same time, it's a little bit adaptable to each plant so that without going too far. So that's what I've seen. That's what I've heard from a couple of customers, actually. And I think that is really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that flexibility, scale up, scale down, and be prepared for what happens in the inevitable changing environment that is manufacturing nowadays. So we talked a little bit about AI and some of the technologies that are, hitting the shop floors. What are some of the next innovations that you see coming down the pipeline, and what role will data and dynamic work management automation, et cetera, play in these innovations and approaches?
Generative AI gets a lot of hype, and so you all know the hype curve and all that stuff, but it's getting some usable stuff, and it's early, and people are going to determine how to do it, and it's not all evil. Just why we might have read in today's paper or whatever, but it's not. It's very useful. I know programmers who can go in and say, I need to do some sort of algorithm or something, and it could come back with a sample code. Now, you have to tweak it yourself. You can, you need to do a memo. You can say, I need a memo on this. It'll send you something back, but you have to, you're not irresponsible in this whole thing. You got to.
Yeah, the human element is still necessary in this equation.
It is still there, but it is going to be really useful. It's going to be really useful. Replicate this form, and then the form comes back, and then you can tweak it because things are different. So it's just like automation, which was a combination of people and machines. Robots have become more of a combination of people plus machines working together, and you're going to see generative AI working with these applications that are going to be the same way. It's going to help the people do a better job. So it's not all evil. So don't go running when you hear generative AI, or don't get all hyped up that, it's going to solve our problems. Well, unfortunately, nothing's going to solve all our problems.
No, Gary, you're right about that. So where specifically QuickBase has gone on the AI journey? Thanks for giving the overall picture on that. But where QuickBase has gone on the AI journey is we have the Gen AI, and we have the plugins with the large language models, and we understand where things are going. We also understand what good structure of an application looks like. So when you combine what people are asking for and the large language models, and what type of KPIs and what types of formulas are being utilized on a daily basis in manufacturing, and then we have the internal structures of the samples of what a good application looks like, what the structure and fields and tables and charts look like. When you combine those two together, that's where the power of QuickBase comes in, because like Gary was saying, you can type in what are you looking for, and type in a few sentences. I'm looking for a fleet management system to help me out with transporting my goods from one point to another, and then it'll ask you, well, what do you want to track? Well, I want to track maintenance of my forklifts, how many hours are on forklifts, how many trucks are in my fleet. And you can insert machines instead of trucks or whatever it may be. And then what'll end up happening is that it'll go out there, it'll start querying what we've done internally based off of our structure and our best practices. And then it'll take that large language model, bring those two pieces together, and then within a few short minutes, you actually have a usable application that is not only giving you the fields and the tables and everything else that you asked for, but then it also gives you the charts, and it gives you the reporting and that visibility so that you can get started right away, so that everybody can understand what the data is. And that's where we're starting to see where Gen AI is really taking us off. And then when it comes to manufacturing, you can just see the data analyzer portion that's going to come along and then say, hey, your machine is not faulting here, but we've noticed at these other plants that same machine is faulting, and these are the criteria that are faulting. You should probably go look at this before ahead of time. And that's where it's going to get really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I think it helps to demystify that this isn't complicated. It doesn't take a long time to implement, and you can start seeing results very swiftly. And I think that's something that we talk a lot about in smart manufacturing, at SME Media, because a lot of people have questions about it, or there's still a lot of misinformation or just complexity surrounding some of the latest technology and new processes that are available to them. So if there's one or two key takeaways that you want our listeners to know, or if there was like a go-do that you'd advise of them, what would that be?
Well, for me personally, it would be go to quickbase.com. And honestly, so we have a free trial where you can open up and start utilizing these pre-built applications. So that would be the first thing that I would do, is just go out there, check out shop floor management, see what it can do, play with it because it's free, and then start utilizing it and see what it really can do for your company.
I can't disagree with that, but it's good to say, I need to solve a problem, and I can investigate. If I go investigate QuickBase, what can they do for me? Oh, I bet I could try this, and maybe that'll solve this problem. And usually you go from solving maybe a smaller problem. Don't try to solve the whole plant problem, but usually I could solve this and go, hey, if this works, I can roll it out. I can do it more. And you really should. That's what you should be doing, is look at your pain point and doing some investigation. And if it's this kind of app helps you, hey, go for it. Like he says, try it. What's that commercial, that old one? Try it, you'll like it, or something. So
yeah, I mean, a free trial, you there's nothing wrong with that. It's a sandbox, and I'm sure people will be surprised with what they can do.
Engineers love to play with stuff, so yeah, give them something to play with.
Well, what's up on the horizon for each of you? Anything that you'd like to highlight in terms of being at events, or any cool initiatives that are coming up?
Well, for QuickBase, I'm going to be actually at the SME show in Pittsburgh on June.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'll be speaking for shop floor management at 2:00 on Tuesday, June 4th. And then we have our booth there. And then the next show after that is in September at IMTS. So we're going to be present at IMTS as well.
What about you, Gary?
As a former SME member, I'm unhappy I can't make that show. And I also know the SESME people who are working with you on that. So, hey, say hi to John for me. But anyway, I will miss that. I will be at IMTS. Other than that, I'm a blogger. I write several times a week and just try to get information and views out. I try to put my personal spin on everything I write out there. And occasionally you see me on LinkedIn. I've kind of quit some of the other social media, but you could see me there. And my occasional podcasts too, called Gary on Manufacturing, you can find. So I try to stay busy.
Yeah. What's the best way to where can people go online to check you out?
TheManufacturingConnection.com. You can also Google Gary Minchell, Mintchll. I am the only one in the world. So it will come back with me. So it's a weird last name. Don't ask me how it came by. So.
Wonderful. Well, Anthony and Gary, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share your insights with our listeners. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Make sure that you stay up to date about what's happening in manufacturing today, and hear more podcasts by visiting us at advancedmanufacturing.org.